Okay, well, let's kick off. And if there's any people who join after this, then we may just go back and cover a few of the key details if we think people are missing out. So, hey everyone, thanks so much for joining this breakout room. My name is Nick Mason. I am the CEO and one of the co-founders of ProofSpace. We're joined also by some other ProofSpace team members. We've got Victor and Ruslan on the call. I want to make a very brief but heartfelt thanks to Victor and Ruslan for their astonishing efforts for this company and for the integration that we're doing with the PRISM SDK at the moment. They're both in Ukraine. And we support them and their families all the way to the end of this awful war. So, ProofSpace is new to the community. We're really delighted to be diving in. It's been one of the best decisions that we've ever made. I think so far that seems to be playing out in if you can see my screen, I'll go through these slides in a minute, but the motivation that we've got so far from participating in this community, the level of interest in what we're doing, the depth of knowledge in self-sovereign identity, the passion that people have for making it more widely adopted, the capabilities that we're seeing emerging through the Cardano community from a technical project business perspective. This has been incredibly exciting for us. So again, we're really proud to be a part of it. And thank you for anyone who voted on our F7 proposal. We're going to dive into a little bit about who we are, what we think we bring to the SSI space that's quite unique. And we'll also spend some time going through our F7 proposal. And really the game, the aim of this breakout room is to give people a chance to ask us any questions that they have and try and find some collaborators to bring production use cases to PRISM using our no-code tooling. So let's go full screen. Alrighty. So we see identity as an enabler and we see privacy as a right. Those are two things that I think everyone on this call agrees with. We recognize that through the rapid development of the self-sovereign identity community in the last few years, that there is a gap that exists in terms of the capabilities that people have to implement their intentions with self-sovereign identity. It does take some engineering resources and it does take some background knowledge to implement SDKs. And not everyone has those experience, not everyone has those resources. Even if you've got a highly resourced engineering team, it doesn't necessarily translate that you have the capacity to implement an SSI SDK for the product or the project or the business process that you're trying to introduce decentralized identity into. So I suppose our starting point is we really want to make it easy for people to deploy SSI workflows in their projects. We have developed a no-code self-sovereign identity platform and we deliver it as a SaaS model. And I suppose our mantra is that we take care of that tricky SSI tech and allow our partners to focus on what they do best. That's a reductive way of describing ProofSpace, and Victor will give me a slap on the wrist later. It's also an identity network, and it enables people to build and deploy quite sophisticated identity workflows involving multiple stakeholders, multiple credentials, long interactions whereby multiple verifiable credentials are exchanged between multiple parties in pursuit of a user goal. And so all of these sophisticated interactions can be developed using this no-code tooling. We recognize in SSI an opportunity for trust networks to drive down the incremental costs in digital trust, and we think that this is going to be a real long-term value driver for self-sovereign identity in the world of reusable credentials. And if anyone had a chance to look at the liminal report that was released recently, you've got to be excited about where this market's going. We're looking at a growth of 27 billion market cap in reusable identity this year to 250 billion by 2027. So this is an astonishing market opportunity where we think a real opportunity to be gained is in driving down those incremental costs in digital trust. One area that we see that happening is by making trust networks easier to create. So rather than having binary interactions between credential parties, we want to enable long interactions involving multiple stakeholders and trust networks that are using the power of credential schemas to allow multiple parties to issue and verify on the basis of the same credential format. So obviously the key here is that credential schemas allow a trusted standard for a credential to be established, and a governance authority can set that credential schema and allow it to be utilized by any company in their network. I know that there's a range of competencies for SSI on the call, so at the end of the call, take a note of your questions, just fire away. Doesn't matter whether you think it's a really entry-level SSI question or something more advanced. We can cater to all of the questions that you have. So we bring, by bringing the no-code self-sovereign identity tooling, it enables people to build, validate, and launch identity workflows and partnership ecosystems really fast. And we've got some products, the web dashboard, and for services, and the mobile application for users that enable us to, enable you to do that, enable you to build and launch those flows. With ecosystems, there are exciting opportunities here from, within healthcare, within hospitality, within education. The screenshot that you can see there, that's from an e-government case that we're building at the moment with a massive pro-democracy community in Europe. It's not yet live, it's going live this month, and I'm hoping to share more about it when it does. But it has a suite of applications and services catering to all of these different user values that where self-sovereign identity plays the linking part between all of those different apps and services. And the beauty of it is that multi-level identity verification can be used to retain people's privacy while giving them access to the services that they want to use. So that's using things like selective disclosure and zero knowledge predicates. And within ecosystems, there's a bunch of other really exciting things that you can do through ProofSpace, like building those long goal-oriented interactions, creating affiliate marketing programs between groups of hospitality partners or education partners, or any ecosystem where there's complementary transfer for shared customers, and in that same ilk, loyalty programs. And of course, the platform enables deep configuration of privacy controls. So the configuration of selective disclosure and zero knowledge predicates in the platform, and that's something that we're hoping to also give people a taste of when we integrate the PRISM SDK. So hopefully the Cardano community will be able to use our schema and credential definition editors to bring those capabilities to PRISM credentials, and I know that's something I'm sure that the PRISM team are planning to include at a later date, but it's something that we can help people get up and running with sooner. So that's part of our F7 proposal, the PRISM SDK integration, and we're really excited to have a lot of proposals filed in F8 as well, the majority of which are collaborative, and I think there are a few of our collaborators on the call. I can see Alison is here. I don't know if we've got anyone else from our collaborator teams, but yeah, Alison and our team are collaborating closely on the PRISM did for CA onboarding project, which is super exciting. Just to briefly flag some of the other proposals that we're running. There's some really exciting, potentially high value, high volume use cases that we're looking at. With the LearnerShape guys, we're looking at doing a pilot of a PeopleCert certification for a DevOps accreditation, and I think they're processing 1 million certificates this year, PeopleCert, and they're quite interested in how blockchain can expand and improve how they deliver their programs. So it's a good pilot for them, and potentially a very good pilot for the Cardano community. Similarly, with the Traveler ID ecosystem project that we're looking at with Yoram and the guys at EREVMax. I might just ask Victor, if you want to say, before I do that, there's also the PRISM VC schema definition. That's a project that seeks to, I suppose, bring some of those schema definition capabilities that are so important for enabling trust networks to the PRISM community, and there'll be some open source documentation that results from that, as well as the ability to run the schema editor within the ProofSpace environment. So let me just, before I go on to the final slide, let me just maybe ask Victor to comment on a couple of the other, top priority independent proposals that we've filed that we think are really going to take our relationship with the Cardano community and the Catalyst community forward from Fund 8, and I suppose we'd be looking at the trust registry, the ADA payments, and the PRISM credentials in particular there. So I don't know if you want to add anything, Victor, to what I've said so far, or on those proposals.
I'll jump in. Thanks, Nick. Hi, everyone. I'm Victor, ProofSpace CTO. So our Fund 7 proposal is about how we can add. So actually, our solution based on Hyperledger Indy credentials, and we want to add Atala PRISM to be able to interact in the same way as we developed in our platform. So the idea is that the first step, we will integrate DID creations and issuing of Atala PRISM credentials through the platform, and plus Indy representation of Atala PRISM credentials. Means that if a user receives this Indy representation of Atala PRISM credential, he or she will be able to interact with it as with other services as Indy credential. So first step of verification will be Indy verification, where we can use zero knowledge proofs, selective disclosure, etc. And then second step of verification will be Atala PRISM credential verification. So we'll support both with this Indy representation of Atala PRISM credentials. And at the second step, we are going to use pure Atala PRISM credentials. Plus, we expect that the core development of Atala PRISM will also add new features, new functionalities, which we are going to support in the platform. The key difference of our solution is that besides just verifiable credentials, we invented so-called interactions, which we may consider as a two steps interaction between user and a service. We call it service. It has like what one part is what credential will be shared, and another part what credential a user will receive if the verification will pass. So this allows user to see and to understand why this credential should be shared and what will be sent back. Combination of several interactions like this can lead user from point A to point B, and B is a goal which a user understand how to reach, and what will be the result of this steps. So this is our Fund 7 proposal, and for the Fund 8 we want to add ability to our app. So yeah, platform consists of the web dashboard where a service can configure the interactions, define the schemas, credential definitions, all these things. These interactions are immediately visible in the app, so user may interact with the service. And we want to add ability to set the other wallet inside our app, so the user will be able to hold Atala PRISM credentials plus use other payments with the interactions, and also ability to interact with the smart contracts from the app, which is an example of the smart contract interaction. In particular, should be a trust registry when users may participate in voting which services, for example, may use predefined schema to issue credentials. So that's how the trust can be set by the community. Token-based PRISM credentials. This is something interesting. We want to discover the way how the assets in the blockchain can have verifiable credential representation. So, for example, we can, if a user receives some token, then this token can be also issued to a user as a verifiable credential, and then used with these interactions we can set in the platform. Another way of thinking could be that a verifiable credential can be also represented as a token, so that it will be easily to use it with smart contracts, for example. And this is the KYC verified token. KYC means that it's not just, KYC is just an example of what can be represented as a token. So if a user pass kind of KYC in the community and receive a verifiable credential, then a token, an asset can be also issued to a user and stored in the ProofSpace app to be used with smart contracts. And few collaborative proposals to translate the platform and the app to different languages, which we believe will help communities, local communities, to start using SSI in a convenient way.
Thanks, Victor. That was great. So yeah, we'll take questions about any and all of what I've said, what Victor said. Feel free to dive in. I suppose our call to action here is if you want to launch a project using PRISM credentials, if you want, and you don't necessarily know where to start, or your project's going a bit slower than you expected, then let's collaborate. Let's use ProofSpace to build, validate, and launch PRISM in your projects. That's the call to action. And on that note, thanks so much for listening. Over to you guys for questions. Stop the screen share so we can go into discussion.
Yeah.
Nick, you can see who is raising hands.
Sorry. Yes. So, Rolo, do you want to go?
Yeah, sure. Oh, great. That looks great, the project. So Several things I got. One is for collaborating. One is I got a funded projects on Fund 7. That is a short project for researching like PC schema. What is out there, and make a catalog of all the schemas that is already available there on different projects. So this is one project that I got funded. We're gonna work on it. So maybe we can collaborate with the one that you had, is the VC schema from Atala PRISM. It's gonna be just a small project, but it's a research, and it's maybe something that we can share with you as well. Is the idea, the name of the project is interoperability within Atala PRISM. So the idea is to have a collection of schemas, so everybody doing stuff on Atala PRISM can use the same schema. It's just that.
Yeah.
So that's gonna be, yeah. And the second one is I'm on the LATAM community. So if you need help from translation, we got a bunch of people who do translation for a small fee. So call us and we can help with that as well.
Definitely, Rolo. Thanks so much. And yes to both.
Good. And the third one is a question. So once you have the interconnection with the Atala PRISM and you start writing on that, so you're gonna have your other project's gonna interoperate. It's gonna be interoperable with that, or it's gonna be just a standalone projects working. So in a credential in your stuff, it's gonna work with the credential with the Atala PRISM.
So both Indy and PRISM credentials will be usable within the ProofSpace environment. So okay. Services will be able to use those credentials interoperably.
Good, great.
And you know, hopefully we'll keep adding new identity networks, but this was the starting point, because it just has this phenomenal community around it.
Good. Thanks.
Thanks, Rolo. Aiden, I think you were next.
Yeah, hey, really enjoyed the presentation. The whole DID environment really interests me. I'm speaking from a project that's actually looking to introduce, I guess, a kind of lower scale DID to the project. I'm in kind of like the gaming space in Cardano, and one of the big issues is it's called smurfing, where basically you have individuals kind of create gaming accounts in order to be placed into matchmaking with kind of people that are new. So basically you have this environment where individuals that are really good at a game, where their account would mainly match make them against other people that are really good at a game, will create a new gaming account, so they're placed against lower skill individuals so that they can essentially do really well. And so this is becoming a rising issue in the play to earn space, because I can just create a new account and then I'm going to be facing against lower ranked players, but performing really well and therefore earning lots of a token. So just as a project that's kind of interested in diving a bit deeper, where would you suggest my next steps be? I know you all said that you're working on a project at the moment, but if I was looking to kind of learn a little bit more about your project and maybe see how we could adopt your technology, what would be my next steps?
Yeah, that sounds like a really interesting case, Aiden. I mean, I suppose that you're talking about some kind of a mechanism to prevent duplication, or to bind people's identities to accounts in a more effective way without necessarily losing anonymity. Is that right?
Exactly. So how can we make it so that when a wallet comes in and connects to our website, because we have people essentially say, hey, I have this wallet and I have this gaming account, and they authenticate both. And then how can we make it so that that person can't just say, hey, each time there's a new, what we do is of epics of people getting paid to play these video games. How can we ensure that that individual isn't just, hey, I'm just going to introduce a new wallet and a new gaming account so I can keep on being matchmaked against new players is kind of the issue we're running into. So yeah, you got it spot on.
Cool. Would love to chat more about it. I mean, the best place to start really is just to have a quick discussion one-to-one. So let's maybe check in separately, and I'll type my email into into the chat, and you can drop me a note and we can arrange a call.
Great. Thank you so much. Really enjoyed it, and have an awesome day.
Thanks, Aiden. Take care. Esteban, you want to go?
Yeah. Just a quick question. I am curious about how is the pricing model going to work for this project?
So overall, our pricing model is it's a subscription model that you pay either monthly or annually. And it's one price, one dashboard. Within a dashboard, you have a service, and that service can have any number of interactions. So we call an interaction the interaction that you have between a service and an end user involving the exchange of verifiable credentials. So, we looked at I'll go into a little bit more detail because we've just been through this had some really interesting conversations about it as a team. There's quite a lot of pricing in the SSI space that is fairly technical, and it's quite hard to get into the details of making reliable projections about where your cost base would end up if you used this service and you scaled with it. If you look at credential-based pricing models, it's kind of as fiddly and technical for commercial teams as looking at how the Asia pricing calculator works, and that's quite specialized stuff. So we wanted to just make it really easy. Credential interactions are really, really cheap. So trying to price them on the level of cents per interaction also becomes, it's beautiful when you look at the projections over 3 years and you see how the system scales and the money starts pouring in the billions, but actually it's not practical because people don't understand it. So we decided to go one price, one dashboard, unlimited interactions, unlimited credentials. Basically within that dashboard, unlimited usage of it. So that's what you subscribe to. And so just for transparency on this, within the collaborative proposals that we're filing at the moment, we're putting in there's like a part of our F7 proposal was to run a pilot for free with collaborators. So we'll do and a pilot has to be somehow constrained, so like 3-4 months, a limited number of let's say like a limited scope in some way. But for assuming that those pilots are successful, we like to build into those proposals a budget for that subscription so that the companies can continue to scale with ProofSpace once they've achieved their POC through the pilot program. So hopefully that was a slightly more detailed answer than you're hoping for, Esteban, but hopefully it was clear.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
Alison.
Hey, thanks, Nick, and fantastic presentation. I always come away from every conversation with you having learned more, so thank you. I'm, as you know, trying to dig into the revenue side of things now, and for the dashboard model that you talked about, in not talking about proof of concept or early stage, but in regular operations, who pays the transaction fee that has to be covered every time a credential is written to the blockchain?
That's all.
You look puzzled. Am I asking that badly?
No, that's all. The operating costs are bound into the subscription price.
But it's meaning that ProofSpace covers the operating costs?
Yeah, so the customers of ProofSpace won't pay anything extra to write, to create a new schema, to publish a new schema, or to Sovereign does it, or at least used to do it, so that publishing a new schema costs $10, and that's to mitigate the risk of loads of people creating. To mitigate the risk of loads of people creating schemas and kind of botting or flooding the system with redundant schemas. The cost of creating schemas and and issuing and verifying credentials in ProofSpace is all bound into the subscription fee.
But isn't there a risk there if you're issuing a whole lot of credentials and there's a transaction fee every time you're writing to the blockchain that couldn't, so if you had a customer who really scaled, couldn't your costs get out of control? And Chris, I see your note. Thank you for that. I'm thinking back to specifically to the Pioneer course where the hash of a batch of credentials was published to the blockchain, or the issuing did itself was published to the blockchain, not the verifiable credentials itself. I thank you for that clarification. It's a really important one. Yes, the verified credential is never published directly to the blockchain, but the hash is, and the issuing did is, so that it can be verified, right? Or have I misunderstood that?
Yeah, did is on chain, schema on chain, cred def on chain, typically in SSI.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I think the key thing that you need to differentiate here is on an indie-based network, the credential issuance and sharing cost you marginal because you don't actually interact with the ledger at that point. Where if you look at the PRISM stack, you will interact if you start writing the IDs, obviously like an indie, and on the credential issuance side. So it is a cost that you ultimately, from a PRISM perspective, will need to consider.
And obviously we're still really early stage because on the testnet, it's all fake money anyway, but I'm thinking ahead to when we get to mainnet.
Yeah, I think for we're let's say that we're at an experimental stage with this new business model. We've just switched from being an enterprise sales model to a SaaS model, and as Lohan said, on Indie, the marginal cost of credential operations is incredibly low, and so it would really have to be at an enormous scale in order for it to overwhelm our subscription price. We'll have to learn how we maybe adjust this pricing in the PRISM setting. So I suppose let's view pricing as something that we want to keep it attractively low always. But if we see that it's going to become untenable based on the different characteristics of the PRISM infrastructure versus the Indie infrastructure, then we'll make an adjustment for PRISM related activities. Does that make sense? I suppose what I'm saying, Alison, is it's a kind of a moving feast on this one, but we want to try and be transparent early about the pricing intentions that we have, and for the time being, it's unlikely that the projects that use PRISM on ProofSpace are going to cause a cost that overwhelms the subscription price.
Yes, thank you. That makes complete sense. And I guess we're all waiting, unless I've missed something, for how PRISM transactions will be priced when they move to mainnet, when it moves to mainnet. Yeah,
but thank you for raising this, because I suppose it's you can tell I kind of faltered a little bit on this, because it's not like we have a crystal clear answer. Victor's eagerly got his hand raised, and he'll probably give a far better response than I did.
Yeah, we considered several options here. So as soon as we'll integrate, as soon as community will vote for the supporting of other payments through the app, we can have as a requirement to perform the interaction, confirmed payment from a user to a service for issuing a credential back to a user. So this is an option one. Another option is that on the web dashboard, service may have also own Atala Cardano wallet with and put some other as a balance and use it to issue credentials to a user if service wants to pay this on its side. So we want to be as much flexible here as possible.
One small question: when you mention subscription, is per end user or per maybe the corporation business that is running or using issuing the credentials?
The service, this is organization, company can pay for issuing the credentials, or they may ask user to prepay this credential in the app, and user will see this and react if he wants, he or she wants to pay for this, then they can pay.
And that's part of what made me think of the question, was seeing, I hadn't fully realized that you were building a wallet that could house ADA payments and PRISM credentials. That's really cool, regardless of how the revenue and the pricing model works out. Having both in the same place is exciting.
Yeah, and not only payments, we want to use assets, Cardano assets as well, somehow in the verifiable interactions. So this is what we have in our proposals.
Thanks, Alison, and thanks, Victor, for jumping in.
And clearly I need to read other people's proposals, not just my own.
Alison, I absolutely know that's not true because I know that you're a keen community advisor. Nicholas Buchanan, I think you were next.
Thanks very much. Two questions. Number one is, have you given any thought to how to make the access to personally identifiable information a self-sovereign decision on a case-by-case basis? So in other words, if I want to withdraw access to personal information to a particular institution with which I've interacted with, can I do that? And then secondly, is there any thought been given to markets where there's low or no internet access, or access to something like a smartphone or other device that might disclude emerging markets?
Great questions, Nicholas. So I can say on the first part, maybe I'll ask Victor to come in after I've made a brief response on this point. But the platform is GDPR compliant. So this is a really boring answer. But if a user submits a data subject access request, which they could in theory do via the mobile application, then the organization is required to honor that request and delete the user's information from their dashboard. And so that can be executed through the dashboard. Currently, withdrawing the data from the user actioning a withdrawal without the participation of the service is not possible, but it's a very interesting idea and one that we can look at as a team.
Sorry.
Victor.
Also, we are going to support no logged or blind interactions, which mean that the end user will see in the app that this interaction is not logged. So you, as a user, you share credentials, they are verified, then service takes some time and issue you back another credential, and then all this information is deleted immediately from the service, and you are just one who hold the signed credential in your wallet. And of course, if you know that there is an option of such interactions, you may see this in your app and prefer to work with the services which not store your data at all. As well as zero knowledge predicates, it's everything you see in the app. You understand what part of the information you are sharing, what facts about yourself you are sharing, And yeah, so this is how we achieve the maximum of privacy in the solution.
Victor, while you've got the mic, do you want to comment on lower connectivity, low phone, no phone?
Right.
How we've been thinking about that over the years.
Yes. So another option that we have in the backlog and move when we have time is how to solve the low connectivity or feature phone issue, especially as our company, we start as in Africa, and this was like our first challenge which we faced. And for this we are developing server-side wallets, which user can create by request and use to interact with the services. And if or when one will get a mobile phone, this wallet will be transferred, migrated to the mobile app and used just there. And another feature that we are actively developing is a voice biometric authentication, which allow feature phone user, which will allow feature phone users to proceed to agree to trigger the interaction with a particular service. So this can be this authentication can be done with our voice solution. This voice solution can be used in other cases, and our voice service is will issue a fingerprint of one's voice to the mobile phone, which a user may share as same as a verifiable credential with other services to enable this voice authentication feature with them.
I don't know if you mentioned that. Sorry if I missed it, Victor. The printable credential. Did you mention that? Right.
We also already support JSON-LD format, and any credential that is issued from a service to a user can be downloaded and printed. So it, for example, may be issued to the server-side wallet and given to a user in a paper format as well. Well, paper-based credential, they're much less secure than wallet Biden credentials, because in this case we don't have this identity binding, and some additional step of identity of physical identity verification should be taken. But yes, we support this as well.
Anyone who was part of the SSI push during COVID-19 will have been part of the conversations around the use of JSON LD in verifiable credential representations, and Victor was always making this point very passionately. So you may have heard him say that already. Ruslan, you have your hand up.
Yes, it was one small correction at first about predicates and the knowledge. Currently it works with Indy, but we don't know how it will work in Cardano. So this will require some support from base match, so we need to define match schema. So this in short term, I think that we will invent some intermediate representation, and I'm not sure that predicates will be available in poor Cardano credentials. Maybe we at the first step, we will have something like Indy predicates, and then and credentials packet into. And then when Cardano credentials will have some match for coding of predicates, then we will switch to Pure Cardano, but this is long-term process which depends not only from us. So no concerns. And second things that if we want to, if we publish something, if we give credentials something, then we lost in some sense these credentials. And this is logical things, not technical. So the ideal solutions when we can revoke credentials as person are not exist, and it is not exist logically, not technically. That's all. Sorry for pessimism.
Pragmatism. Ruslan. Okay. And Nicholas, you have your hand up.
Oh, thanks very much. And I wanted to get behind that point as well, is that I think that part of how this is thought about requires creating their credential on something, but never actually sharing it with anybody, except in the narrow instance in which it's necessary. So if I need a prescription for Sudafed, for instance, it should be used in that context and only in that context, and should not be left with the pharmacist or with CVS or Walgreens or whomever to have that information to otherwise used in a context other than which it was meant for and intended for. That's what I was thinking around preservation of privacy. One of the success measures for the privacy preservation project for COVID-19 contact tracing was how could they somehow identify or notify somebody when they were in close proximity with another individual without disclosing their actual identities. So I started to put a lot of thought around that. But I did want to offer that there are ways in such that the privacy of that information can be ensured that it's never actually copied. And that way, you know that information, PII, be it health information, identifiable information, credit, what have you, is used in the context for which you've agreed to, and that it's guaranteed cryptographically that it cannot be misused or used in a way incongruent with what your understanding of that information use is. But I think that's a good point, is that the moment that it is transmitted to somebody electronically or in any means, that you've kind of given up that information and you no longer have sovereignty over it. So any solution should, to my mind, keep self-sovereignty or the sovereignty of the command or control of your personal information always in the control of that end user and never in the control of some entity which you have no control over. I should not have to submit a GDPR request to somebody and leave it up to their discretion or someone's discretion as to whether or not it's legitimate. If it's, I want, under GDPR, I have the right to be forgotten. So I should be able to self-actuate that right at the time and moment of my choosing. Just some food for thought.
Yeah, easy. Give us until next week. I think you're making some really fascinating and important points. I obviously we're not ready to do all of the things that you're talking about just yet. But what I think is important is that we are on a pathway to true principles of self-sovereign. So
diversifying to save my ass in the bull markets, and then in the
I'm getting a lot of is there someone trying to say something on the call?
I'm so sorry, guys. I truly apologize.
That's okay, don't worry, it happens. Yeah, so not to labor the point, but I think this we have to accept that we're on a roadmap towards increasing privacy and increasing self-ownership, and you know that unfortunately there are some what do you call them, sacrifices in our principles that we need to make along the way in order to make progress and scale these models. I think that also comes up a lot in how when people talk about KYC and self-sovereign identity and the reliance on identity providers for KYC. You know, until we get governments as issuers, then we have to have a way of onboarding verifiable foundational identities without relying on governments as issuers, and that requires us to make a trade-off in self-ownership. So there is just going to be this journey where we have to make these decisions, which maybe aren't perfectly palatable with the ideal principles of SSI. Hopefully that makes sense. And I hope that makes sense and is a kind of realistic response. I don't want to kind of gloss things over.
Yeah, take it more as an offer to collaborate. There are actual solutions to solve what we're talking about very, very specifically. Just as a happenstance, I've got some experience with the, I don't know if you're familiar with GFIPM, but it's a global identity standard for how criminal justice information is used worldwide. So when there's, for instance, a collaborative interface between like Interpol, for instance, and the FBI, there's a standard by which identity is established between the two parties, such that Interpol officers can access FBI data and so on and so forth. So it's an area of research that we put a tremendous amount of work into, with a lot of feedback through state and local government and whatnot. And I wanted to offer some of the feedback they had, some of the work that we did, that research, to further strengthen this, because I think this is something that is fundamentally important across as many different projects and thought leaders as possible. And I think we can get to that ideal sooner than we believe. But I arrived at that at the end of a lot of research. So I would love to give that over so that you had that platform for which to build some more success on.
Amazing, thanks so much, and congrats on that research. It sounds pretty extraordinary. So yeah, we'd love to keep the conversation going and collaborate with you. Thank you. Saw a couple of other hands going up and then disappearing. I don't know if people had questions answered or decided they were getting tired. It's gone past 8 in London, and I'm sure people are getting tired. So if we want to start talking about concrete collaborations, if we want to start wrapping up, let me know what the mood of the room is.
I have a stop, and I just wanted to share, sorry for putting my hand up, a link to the California Assembly session last week. SB 1190 was heard for the first time in committee. It's authorizing a trust framework for California and a pilot with education. So I testified as an expert witness, and it passed unanimously this committee. So there's many more steps involved. It goes next to the Education Committee in 3 weeks, and then to the Senate floor, and then the House committees, and then the House floor, and then appropriations, and then finally in August, with any luck, we'll have the governor sign it. So California would enact a trust framework. So it's really exciting. it's really fun to do that. So
awesome work.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thanks. The video is awesome because the Senator Hertzberg, we started working with him 3 years ago, and he's become our blockchain advocate in the Senate and House. This is his 5th bill. And so the first couple minutes of his opening, he like explains blockchain and explains verifiable credentials, and he does like a really good job. So it's just like super exciting to see that the understanding we need in this body in California has come along. It's come so far. So
yeah, and that's absolutely huge. And we should talk. I did a large project with the California Department of Justice around GFIPM and identity, around all the same concerns, largely around use of criminal justice information in the context in which it was used and so on and so forth. But it's really exciting to see the pieces come together over, as you were saying, many years. Self-security started quite a while ago, as did ours, though on very different paths.
Nicholas, do you have my office hours link? Just let's schedule some time. Let me just put it in the chat. Would love to talk more. I was going to quip when you were talking, we can't change physics. Once you tell someone something, they know it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, quite ironically is that that problem was something we were trying to solve, right? Like we wanted to make sure that information could be used in the instance it was necessary, but make it in such a way that it could not be then taken, copied, and then mishandled or misused in some other context, or at least reduce it down to the minimal amount necessary. And the problem is quite complex and vast. So it really lends itself well to this type of development and this type of innovation, because there's so much meat on the table. It'd be a shame for anyone to run off with it and try and, create any kind of perfecture of it. So, I'm a firm believer in the approach, and I think the approach is necessary, but I think that perfecture, how we described it, we're not as far off as we think we are. And I'm hoping that with some involvement and whatnot, we can connect more dots than we leave open.
Yeah, would love to deep dive if you want to schedule time. We're doing, foundational level research on privacy by design and zero knowledge, tech. So we have the fortune of a research team here at IO that can, help with this. So if you've made progress, I'm very, very interested. I sort of had assumed this was fairly intractable once you provide something. I can imagine mechanisms by which you can enforce.
Yeah. So part of it, if you set up any kind of government systems are kind of in place. There are ways that they can display information, make it read only. And if you, and they can disable it so you can't take a screenshot of it, you can't do that. They can make it so that when you enter into certain locations, your cell phone no longer functions. We can get into the details. It's quite long and involved, but if we could paint a picture, I could show you at the end state, the technology that we have on the table that exists today that is within the grasp of the people on this call and outside this call can create this reality, such that you are in full control of that data. You can still enjoy all of the benefits that we have with large data sets and AI, though they're not tied specifically about you. And we can enable governments to deliver a very high quality level of services that are based on clear, accurate, and up-to-date information, not information that some other party might misrepresent about you, what have you. But I'd love to share that, and I don't want to take all the oxygen out of the room as I tend to do. I've got your office hours, or check the chat, and I'll follow you that way.
Awesome.
Victor, I can see you've got your hand up. I know that some people have said that they want to drop off. Tony, you said you've got a hard stop. So thanks so much for everyone who's joined. It's been a great conversation. You can reach us on email, Telegram, Discord. I'll put our contact details in the slides that I showed, and I'll share those around. So whoever does have to drop off, again, thank you so much. Hopefully we'll have a chance to collaborate. Victor, over to you.
Yeah, just maybe another approach that can be used to prevent this data leaking is by how we can incentivize people to share the less amount of information, to request less amount of information. So as a market, it can be solved by a market. I mean, if verifier should pay to the issuer for to verify the information, for example, and also pay to a user who is sharing this information, as soon as this information can cost something for the service who requested. This is how this service can be incentivized to request the smallest amount of information as possible. Plus, if and when people will start value their information much more than now, they may also choose from the services who do the same, who provide the same service, those who request less information. So I believe that market can bring incentives into this problem, and in the future we will face the solution that can work in this way as well. Additionally to the some kind of security tools that can notify user of using their information in an appropriate way. Thanks.
All right. So I'm happy to hang around and answer more questions if there are any. But if you guys want to drop off, thanks so much. It's been a great session.
Thank you, Nick. It's unlike me to not have any questions when somebody opens the floor. I think maybe it's getting late. I feel like there are a million other things I would have liked to ask if my brain was a bit clearer.
You already asked some great questions, Alison, so thank you. Also, it's a bit later for you than it is for me. I think it's an hour later for you. So.
Yeah, but and Victor, you're an hour further, right? Are you UTC +2 or 3?
Is UTC +3 now?
Yeah.
And
10 p.m. All right.
Okay. Thanks so much, everyone.
Then I'm going to stop the recording.